Everything I learned about team building, I learned from The Last Dance is my presentation. You can reach me at jmkimball42@gmail.com. There are other links. I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn. Those links will be provided at the end of my presentation. If you'd like these slides, please contact me. I'll gladly provide them for you. My lawyer said I had to do the following. This is a disclaimer. The thoughts and opinions expressed during this presentation are mine and mine alone. They in no way reflect thoughts and opinions of my employer, family members, or anyone else. This presentation is intended for educational purposes only and do not replace independent professional judgment. Statements of facts and opinions expressed are those of the presenter individually, and unless expressly stated to the contrary, are not the opinion or position of my employer or anyone else. With that out of the way, let's get to the presentation. Who the heck am I? I'm a proud graduate of the State University of New York, College at Oswego, class of '87, so yes, I'm really old. Al Roker is a graduate. Steve Levy is a graduate. He is the lead Monday Night Football announcer. And seriously, in the field of IT, it's Doug Lee. Doug Lee is a computer science professor, and he taught a few CS classes that I attended. He is best known for the field of concurrent programming and has written 2 concurrent programming in Java books. I've been in IT now for 32 years. My first 10 years in IT were spent as a Unix sysadmin. I worked with a lot of commercial Unix operating systems that I listed, Microport, SCO. Worked my way up to SunOS, then it became Solaris, AIX, and IRIX, but I do love Linux, and after all those commercial Unix operating systems, I worked extensively on Linux and love Linux. The middle 20 years of my career have been spent as a web systems administrator, engineer, and architect. Got into the web field, which I absolutely loved. But after 20 years, kind of got sick of it. The last 2, I've been specializing in implementing DevOps principles in the areas of integration and security. Currently, I am at a American major grocery chain for the last 19 years and since 2002. So why was The Last Dance your inspiration? The Last Dance is the greatest 10-hour sports documentary ever made, chronicling Michael Jordan's years with the Chicago Bulls of the NBA, the National Basketball Association, Pro Basketball. It is currently available on Netflix. I say it's the greatest 10-hour sports documentary. It is probably the only 10-hour documentary concerning sports. The documentary is about a team that won the NBA championship 6 times in the 11 years Michael Jordan actively played on the team. This is astonishing and outstanding, and has rarely been matched in the annals of sports. Given this, I found a lot of insights as to how teams are formed and flourished over a decade and can prove beneficial to fields outside of pro basketball, such as IT. Also, there are many life and work lessons that can be learned from this documentary, and I'll go over the ones I learned. So the NBA and IT, not as different as you think. So I go over some similarities. Both fields feature young, fresh out of college talent. The young talent is either nurtured to become a valuable professional within the organization that drafted, hired him or her, or it leaves their first team or company for another team or company in another city, or sometimes in pro basketball and even in IT, another part of the world. An average NBA team has 12 members. An average IT team has 8 members. Now, the 8-member figure I got from the Amazon doctrine that says that it's a 2-pizza A team should be composed of enough people to finish 2 pizzas, so that's usually 6 to 8 members. An average NBA and IT team features members that differ considerably in age and experience, so that's definitely true. And both fields usually have a single supervisor or coach, and assistant supervisors or coaches in the NBA. They're called coaches. Both fields want team members heavily committed to the business. So, let me get to the next slide. So how is this presentation going to go? I'll be presenting team building lessons I learned from The Last Dance and compare them to an IT setting. The purpose is to identify characteristics of a good or a bad team and to see how this may apply to your companies and or work environments. So, when is it time to realize your team isn't good and needs to change? Well, in The Last Dance, Michael Jordan was drafted by a team that wasn't very good. And this is normal in the NBA and in sports, just really quickly. The worst teams get the first selection in the college draft. Those are usually the next great players. And the best teams usually get the last picks to try and promote what they call parity, where the bad teams eventually become good and breeds competition. So basketball is not the only sport that does this. Baseball and football, pro, are examples. Not only were the Chicago Bulls not that good, but it appears that some of them were drug addicts, and I'm not going to go into that. During the Netflix documentary, they touch upon that in the first episode. In the NBA, the easiest metric to measure how good a team is how many wins do they get. Well, in Michael Jordan's rookie year, the Bulls only won 38 games. They play 82, so they won less than half. But by Michael Jordan's 4th year, the Bulls won 50 and lost 32. There was only one other player that was still with the Bulls from Michael Jordan's rookie year, and they were also on their 3rd new coach and or supervisor. I have some notes concerning that. So sometimes change is good. So quick explanation, like who was responsible for the changes between Michael Jordan's rookie year and the 4th year? Much like businesses, teams in the NBA have a general manager, and the general manager is a position that's usually below the owner and above the coach, and he is responsible basically for making the team. He orchestrates all the trades and the draft picks to create the team. He also has a say, along with the manager, as to who coaches the team. I'll be talking about Jerry Krause throughout this talk later, as he, of course, played a pivotal role in the making of this team. So in IT, when is it time to realize your team isn't good and needs to change? Well, if you have team members who are resistant to change and are set in their ways and love the way things are currently, which is bad in some instances, that might be a telltale sign that you need to change your team members and the makeup of your team and maybe your culture. Some metrics that can be used to measure the value of your team include, I listed a few examples: support ticket reduction, reduction in security vulnerabilities, the number of projects completed successfully on time, lead time and SLAs, to name a few. If these numbers aren't improving or getting worse, it's probably time for a change. One other metric that's gained some popularity lately has been the quality of products that your IT organization creates, and also, are you able to achieve key results, also known as OKR. In the top companies, your IT team has to be continually measured for effectiveness. Amazon, Google, and other examples I state later are really good at that. So I do realize that in the field of IT, you really can't just one day, I'm going to fire everybody and start fresh. You kind of can do that in sports with trades and acquisitions. So there is a little bit of a difference, but granted, I mean, there are times through such methods as transformation and voluntary retirement options and other methods management has used to change the makeup of the team and to make it a culture shift. Netflix is a good example. And from 98 to 2012, they changed and expanded their team drastically during this era. And by the end of it, their stock price had tripled. They had a customer base of 29 million. And Netflix in their culture statement stated, "We're a team, we're not a family." And the Bulls and Netflix were after the same thing, excellence. The power of effective drafting. So back to the NBA example, Jerry Krause, as I mentioned earlier, is the Bulls general manager. He did a very good job of recruiting and obtaining top-notch talented players for the Chicago Bulls following Michael Jordan's rookie year. This is, of course, laid out in the documentary. A few examples I cite, Scottie Pippen, one of the 50 greatest players in the NBA and a member of the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. He was on all 6 of the Bulls championship teams with Michael Jordan. Horace Grant was drafted by Jerry Krause one year. He was a very good player. He's a keystone player, played on 3, half of the Bulls championships teams. And Tony Kukoc, an example of thinking outside of the box. Jerry Krause drafted him and he had never played in America. He was a European star, and Kukoc turned into a dependable, solid player who played on 3 of the Bulls championships teams. So in IT, what is the power of effective recruiting? So many companies throughout the last decade have been truly great at recruiting IT talent. Some examples include Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Salesforce. One common thread with all of these companies is they conduct rigorous interviews and have high qualifications set in place for all their applicants. I know for a fact that Google used to have this test that was like a Mensa test. I mean, you had to have graduated Stanford with honors to try and pass it. They have since done away with that, but one of their early recruiting techniques was to have a test. And, you know, we've all heard of these companies before. These companies are arguably some of the best companies in America and some of the best to work for and are pretty much captains of the IT and tech fields. They truly value their associates / players. One thing to note is if you had bought some stock in all of those companies around 2010 and you're still held on to them, you'd be quite rich. And I'm available for stock tips following the presentation if you'd like. So I put this up. Nice guys sometimes finish last with a question mark. And throughout the documentary, you get this sense, Michael Jordan, not so nice. Phil Jackson, the coach, nice. If you had a choice, who would you rather be? There's really no right answer. I mean, they were both very effective, and I'll go into this later in my slides. Sometimes your most valuable players on a team aren't nice, but I'd still want them because Michael Jordan was phenomenal. He led the league in scoring almost every year. He was instrumental in all those championships. So how's that similarity in the IT field? Steve Jobs, I'd say. not so nice. Bill Gates, I'd say was nice. If you had a choice, who would you be? There's really no right answer. I mean, Steve Jobs is arguably the greatest entrepreneur and in the IT field, yet Bill Gates is the second richest person in the world. One chose innovation and the other chose money a lot of times. The source I got for this is from a 1990, how I came up with the assertion that Steve Jobs wasn't nice and Bill Gates wasn't nice. There's a really good, somewhat obscure made-for-TV movie in 1999 called The Pirates of Silicon Valley. Quote it right? Pirates of Silicon Valley, based on the book Fire in the Valley. You get the sense that Jobs was a tyrant, kind of like Michael Jordan, and he hated IBM. You also got the sense that Gates was really laid back, wanted to make a lot of money, and he had no problems working with IBM. Passion and devotion are good. So in the field of basketball and in the documentary, it would be hard to exceed the amount of passion, devotion, and commitment to excellence that Michael Jordan had in his years with the Bulls. It was all these traits that led to excellence. Basically, he hated to lose, and it is very apparent in the documentary. He also made the players around him better with drive and determination. Some called Michael Jordan demanding and a tyrant, and they do so quite a bit in the documentary. But I'm like, okay, he really just wanted the best out of every player and to work as hard as he did. And he wanted the best out of you every day, including practice. Back to practice. Jordan in practice challenged a young player called Scott, his name was Scott Burrell, mercilessly, and that's in an episode of the documentary. But his motivation was that I'm going to need him in battle. And I have a quote from Burrell. Scott Burrell said Michael Jordan taught him, he wants to win. Nothing is easy. Nothing is given to you. So how's that apply in the IT field? Passion and devotion, I think in the IT field are good. You really want to have associates who have passion, devotion, and a commitment to excellence. Devotion is seen in employees who have a thirst for curiosity and who are continuously learning. Positive passion is good. The desire to fulfill your role to the best of your abilities. Examples of passionate leaders include Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. So I just wanted to state, I wrote some notes here, passion is sometimes seen as a negative in the workplace, but I don't think it truly is. Some people have been called a-holes for being passionate, but a lot of times they're just like Michael Jordan in this documentary. Sometimes demanding bosses just want the best out of you. Bezos has a passion for exploring new opportunities. This is why Amazon evolved from the biggest bookstore to the biggest store in the world. You sometimes need a calm force to manage the team. So Phil Jackson was the coach/manager of the Chicago Bulls. He was able to manage all these diverse personalities with relative calm. To him, it was all about breathing, centering, and focus. I just put in, according to Wikipedia, he has a holistic approach to coaching that was influenced by Eastern philosophy. And I have an example of I have an example of this. It's called the Dennis Rodman story. And it also is, you can get from this story the difference between Phil, nice, and Michael Jordan, not so nice. So Dennis Rodman was a player on the Chicago Bulls, and one day he stated that he needed a break in the middle of the season. And he expressed this to the coach, Phil Jackson. Phil granted this. Go take a break during the middle of the season, which is almost unheard of, but again, he's a calm force. Dennis, however, decided his break was to party in Las Vegas. And after nearly a week of being gone, Michael Jordan asked Phil, "Where the heck is Rodman? And when is he coming back?" Phil stated that he's in Vegas and will come back when he's ready. Jordan stated, "He's had enough time off, I'm getting him." So Michael Jordan flew to Vegas and dragged Rodman back to Chicago to play basketball. It's also been said that Phil Jackson connected to his players on a deep personal level, and that was the way he got the best out of him. So how's this apply to IT? I think sometimes you need a calm force to manage your team in IT. Throughout my career, I've found the best managers are calm under pressure, especially during outage bridges. Have you? I tend to not be very calm during the outage bridges. I'm really focused on trying to get the service back up, while a lot of senior managers and members in management are a lot more calmer and are able to work under pressure a lot better than I. An example of someone who works under, is relatively calm and a very successful member in the IT community is Sundar Pichai, who's the CEO of Alphabet. He's been described as a calming force who avoids confrontation while embracing cooperation. He's also been noted for bringing the best out of others, much like Phil Jackson. Healthy conflict is good. So I will describe one time Michael Jordan got in a fight with one of his teammates, Steve Kerr. I have some details here. So one day Michael Jordan and Steve Kerr got in a fight during practice. Michael Jordan took umbrage that Steve Kerr seemed to be taking practices lightly a year after losing in the playoffs to the Orlando Magic the year prior. Jordan was frustrated that day at Phil Jackson, the coach, calling Jordan for fouls. It eventually escalated in a fight that got Jordan thrown out of practice. Jordan immediately apologized to Kerr, and Kerr called it, "The best thing I ever did was to stand up for myself with him." So what does that tell us, and what was the outcome of this fight? They both came out with a tremendous amount of respect for one another. They came away with a lot of trust in one another since then. They went on to win. They went on to go to a 72-10 record, which at the time was the best ever. They won the championship that year. And Steve Kerr ended up being a phenomenal coach, leader himself. After his playing days, he coached the Golden State Warriors to 3 NBA championships. So how is healthy conflict is good in the IT field? At Amazon, healthy conflict is a way of life, they said. In a Forbes article, it was stated that at Amazon, there's an incredible amount of challenging the other person. And in a Business New Daily article, it states, "A healthy amount of workplace conflict can be valuable to the growth of an organization. Debates, competition, and industry disruption are all examples of conflict that can lead to fresh perspectives and growth for a business." Myself, I worked in an environment long time ago where you would get a bonus if you were on a project that completed on time and under budget. This created a situation where project managers would assemble teams with the best engineers or developers, knowing that they would likely obtain a bonus check because their team was so talented and could deliver. It created really good, healthy competitiveness, and it was quite good working there. So in conclusion, as you can see, there's a lot you can learn from The Last Dance. Some examples are healthy conflict is good. You sometimes need a calm force to manage a team. Passion and devotion are good. When is it time to realize your team isn't good and to change? The power of effective recruiting or drafting. And nice guys sometimes finish last. It It was all these characteristics that produced a team that won 6 championships. The Last Dance is a truly incredible documentary, and you don't have to be a sports figure to enjoy it, and I highly recommend it. Email me if you want slides and guides to clips in The Last Dance I reference in this presentation. Due to copyright concerns, I did not show clips, but I can, if you email me, I'll tell you like what episode and where is the Steve Kerr Michael Jordan fight, or when is the Dennis Rodman affair, and stuff like that. References, couldn't have done this without them. I'll briefly explain these. Oh, the first one is a the Netflix HR culture slide deck. I found a lot of good information concerning that, especially how Netflix's culture works and their approach to HR. It's a little dated, but it's very applicable. The second reference is how Netflix reinvented HR. Another reference, that was from the Harvard Business Review. Professional development companies hiring talent, how 6 companies hire talent, like Salesforce and Amazon. Just Wikipedia, I love Wikipedia, everything's on Wikipedia. This link I'm pointing to now was Jerry Krause's draft picks, some more information concerning that. He was the general manager of the Chicago Bulls. And 12 Amazon Technologies of Jeff Bezos. Healthy workplace conflict, why it's actually a good thing. And of course, Netflix. The documentary is currently on Netflix. If anyone has any questions, please step up to the mic. If not, this is my contact information. You can give me an email at jmkimball42@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter as jmkimball42, and I'm also on LinkedIn as jmkimball. Thank you. My one and only animation.